Bad guys don't take days off, and neither does our coverage. Listeners get a free T-shirt when you use the code Gun Owners Radio. In fact, sign up today. Go to uslawshield.com.
All right, our next guest is Steve Tarani. He is a professional educator, author, and keynote speaker. Steve Tarani has served the United States defense, law enforcement, and intelligence communities for over 30 years as a respected subject matter expert, service provider in protection, firearms, and defensive tactics to numerous high and low-profile federal agencies. Steve, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Rich, how are you? Very good. Thank you for having me on today.
You bet. Thanks for joining us so much. So let's start off. I have soft serve skills. I've worked on those for years. I'm pretty good at it, but I don't think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about soft skills. Steve, what are soft skills?
Sure. The best way to describe soft skills will be in two parts. One would be to illustrate the contrast between hard skills and soft skills, and the other would be to discuss the significant advantage of soft skills over hard skills. So the first one would be, we look at hard skills. Those are anything that would require your physicality, such as firearms, hand-to-hand combat, edge weapons defense, defensive driving, things like that. Hard skills, by their nature, can cause injury. They introduce a scale of injury and require mandatory physical training. So by contrast, soft skills does not require the use of your body. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It requires the use of your mind. It is non-physical, therefore it does not introduce any physical injury. And you don't need a firearm, a gun, or empty hand or anything like that. The only thing you need is appropriate mindset and situational awareness.
Wow, that's interesting. So, give me an example. What's an example let's go this route. What's an example of how you teach someone soft skills?
So, there are, I'll give you a 30,000-foot view. There are entire government agencies, such as the National Security Agency, whose entire purpose is wrapped around the entire concept of soft skills. So I'll give you an example. Some people who do surveillance, counter-surveillance, surveillance detection, things like that, they are the experts in soft skills. Law enforcement officers are experts in soft skills. They are trained to, follow a process. For example, sir, may I please have your driver's license? They go through the process of asking, and then if you don't, then they take it to the next level. Okay, sir, give me your driver's license, things like that. And then, up from there. We as civilians are held to the same standards of appropriate use of force as is law enforcement, and you got to start at the lowest levels, of course, which are your soft skills.
That's interesting. What led you to this? Tell us a little bit about how your career led you to educating people about soft skills.
Well, having served as a deputy for a short time, and also working as a federal contractor, and especially working overseas for CIA and other government agencies, I was exposed to situations and conditions where it was absolutely necessary for us to have hard skills. In fact, you couldn't get on that airplane unless you qualified, with specific hard skills for that assignment. But what was interesting to me, what I discovered in the world of protection and in law enforcement, in the world of a federal contractor, is that almost all, if not all, of those problems that most folks got into could have been solved without ever needing to go to guns. So it really interested me years ago, about 20-something years ago. This is what caught me on fire about that, is that, well, you know what? Bad things just don't happen to good people out of the blue. There's a series of events which lead up to that physical violence, and those series of events are what can be managed using soft skills. If not, then you have no choice but to rely on your hard skills But why not solve the problem, without needing to introduce injury to the equation?
That's interesting. So, in an ideal world, where should education about soft skills happen when a person becomes a gun owner?
Well, you know how it is in the world of, for example, when you have a person who's never owned a gun before, and they decide, I'm going to own a gun. Well, then they think it's pretty much like a rabbit's foot or some type of a charm or something that's going to keep away all evil. But they don't realize that it requires quite a bit of training, for maintenance and safety and storage, et cetera, all the things that are required to be a responsible gun owner. And those are mandatory to owning a firearm. In addition to that, also comes your responsibility and to meet those standards for appropriate use of force. So, for example, someone raises their voice. Well, you don't have the right to just go to guns and solve the problem that way. How about de-escalating the conversation or de-escalating the argument, using your verbal judo skills, using your situational awareness to figure out, hey, what's another way to solve this problem?
I've heard it put. I've heard other instructors say that, is your gun a whoopi? In other words, are you carrying it like your protective blanket when you were a kid, or are you actually putting the training in to so that you know what you're doing and you are effective with it? It kind of reminds me of what you were saying.
Exactly. That's correct. I mean, it varies. I'm in my 21st year on staff up at Gunsight Academy, and I've seen literally tens of thousands of new gun owners over the past 3 decades. And I can tell you that there's a wide range from, yes, this is a lucky rabbit's foot, to, oh, no, I need to train with this and really get good at it. There's quite a range.
So tell me a little bit more. So we kind of talked about it from 30,000 feet. Give me, if someone says, hey, I want to come in and learn more about soft skills, give me a little clearer example or a little bit, more detailed example. What are they actually learning? Like what are they learning? Or maybe describe a scenario where soft skills, get somebody out of trouble, I guess.
Sure, yeah, and it's what you use it for. You got to look at the gun, or I shouldn't say just the gun. I mean, it could be anything. Could be a knife. Could be a improvised weapon. Whatever that is. If you need to go to that, that means that you are rocked back on your heels, and it is your only remaining reactive measure. Well, in contrast to that, utilizing your soft skills, that would be something along the lines of you're walking into a situation where you're in, let's say, an unfamiliar environment. Well, we can use everybody uses this word, situational awareness. There are varying levels of that, but utilizing or applying your situational awareness to your environment, you can take visual control, audio control. You can utilize your mind to interact with your environment, to look for such things as potential threat indicators, anomalies, things like that, where it could identify a potential threat. And if you do see something, then you've been made aware of it, and you can avoid it. So anything that's utilizing a soft skill is a proactive measure as opposed to a reactive measure, which would require the use of a hard skill.
That's interesting.
All right. Hey, we're going to have to take a quick break. Can you hang around?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's awesome. Our freedom of speech is just as important as our freedom of self-defense. And we are thrilled to support an American company like MyPillow. Go to MyPillow.com and use the code FREEMARKET3 and get up to 66% off America's best pillow. Get a great night's sleep and enjoy the satisfaction of supporting companies fighting against cancel culture. That's MyPillow.com and use promo code FREEMARKET3 for up to 66% off. All right. We brought back Steve Tarani.
Steve Tarani.
Or Tarani.
Yep, and we're talking about soft skills. Steve, how should people train for mindset?
Okay. let's put it into focus before we go into the specifics like that. The focus would be, we can ask our listeners to think about when they were very young, when, like, say 4 or 5 years old, all the way up to this very moment listening to this broadcast. And in that time, what percentage would you say that you were in a knockdown, drag-out, punch-in-the-face, teeth-on-the-roadside curb fight versus utilizing your awareness to maybe see something and hear something and never really engaging physically? If you look at those numbers, it's about 2% that have gone through that type of stuff, knockdown, drag-out fight, and 98% of that time was utilizing something else. So if you look at those percentages, 2% versus 98%, we look at all the schools and everything out there for hard skills. It's applicable to that 2%. My question is, what about the 98%? And to go right back into your question, Rich, it's about things that you can do to support that 98% skill. And one of them is very common, and that is being able to make some decisions by yourself without needing to go to a school or go to a class. And here's what I mean by that. You have to come to the agreement with yourself and accept the fact that bad things happen every day and that they could happen to you. Most people think, oh, yeah, it'll never happen to me, or it might happen in some far-off, undetermined date in the future. But tomorrow afternoon, you get out of the car or get out of work or whatever, it could happen right then and there. So step one would be to accept the facts. And then after that, to make up your mind. And included in the mindset is that your own personal safety is your responsibility. Once you've made that decision that it's your responsibility and you accept the fact that it could happen, then the third step would be to have the will to be able to do something about it.
So what's something our listeners can do at home to practice soft skills? Okay,
one of the drills is to always have a plan. And that would be, okay, let's say, I'm just making this up, you're taking the family to an outdoor holiday event. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's an open area. There's to something like that. If something happened, you'd probably have to run some distance if you needed to. So, for example, I wouldn't wear open-toed shoes or flip-flops or the clothing that was restrictive, things that would restrict you from being able to run in case something like that happened. Do you have something in the car? Medical kit, things like that. Think ahead of where you're going, what you're going to be doing, and dress appropriately and prepare for that mentally.
So as you're kind of describing it here, it sounds almost like maybe an extreme kind of Hollywood example is like, I don't know, like when Jason Bourne walks into a room and he knows exactly where, everything is, and he knows how fast he can run for how long and where the escape route is, and this guy over here has this look on it, or like Mission Impossible when he describes the room and everybody runs. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Not to that level, but
yeah, not to that level. That level's extreme. I don't think that level actually exists. Well, that's actually a good question. Does that level actually exist? Do you know? I would figure you'd be the person to ask. Are there actually human beings out there that have that level of soft skills, professional, whatever, spies or whatever? Does that actually exist, or is that all in the movies?
Having been a protective agent and being in the world of protection, there are folks who are very, very good at that. And to really clarify that, you can look. I'll give you an example. How many times have you looked at your watch to see what time it is and then looked at it again? Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the reason why. Your eyeballs were on it. You looked at your watch. Clearly, if somebody took a picture, you were looking at your watch, but you didn't see it because you were not mentally connected to it. You weren't there. Your mind wasn't connected. So many people can walk into a room and throw their eyeballs around the room and look at many things, but they can't see, or they're not trained to see. There's a big difference. It's not what you look at that matters. It's what you see.
So now I figured it out.
Yeah?
Well, I collect tall radios, and I bought one the other day and put it in the house. 3 days went by before the wife figured out it was there. But yet she walked by it. I mean, literally.
Soft skills.
No soft skills.
She needs to take his class for sure.
I think she needs to. You know, I got a text from a school teacher that said you need to think about teaching soft skills to teachers, because she said the majority that teach have no idea how to do soft skills.
Well, I actually do that.
Funny you should say that.
My company, we're hired, and we do have clients which are the more forward-leaning schools that are a little bit ahead of the power curve, because they realize they can solve the problem without relying on their active shooters hard skills training.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so that sounds like we just kind of described a very small
My wife just texted me. She says, "That's me."
You just described a small fraction of it, because after you're aware and you notice and see things that are going on, then there's a reaction. There's something you have to do to avoid having to use hard skills.
Well, are you overly observant? Like when you go home, do you look around the house?
So honestly,
or no?
I always sound. I feel like I sound like a dork when I say this, but I actually really am. I'm very observant. I always know what's going on around me.
Me too.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Joe?
No, I actually do. I try to make it a point to do that, but I mean, nobody's perfect, because I'll catch myself, doing things like you were just talking about your wife. We got a new mailbox in the neighborhood on our street, brand new, completely different than the old one, and I walked by that at least 3 times, didn't even see it. So, I try to be paying attention all the time.
I've never done that,
but I slip once in a while.
So I was going to blame it on military training, because you and I both have been in the military. And they've always taught you to keep your eyes open and always be looking around.
Well, I mean, it does work most of the time. And like Michael was saying, I mean, when I walk into a restaurant, a business or something, I do always look around. No, I'm conscious of who's in there with me, and I'm conscious of the doors and everything like that.
I mean, I'm downright. I'm as close to paranoid as it can get without it being diagnosable. I mean, I don't even like when walking down the street. If someone's walking behind me, I'll put my back up against the wall and just let them go by. Like I'm almost
and
paranoid.
No one's going to jump you as big as you are.
Well, and because of my soft skills too. Hey, so all right, so Steve, so now you're self-aware. You're aware of your surroundings. But that's just kind of a minor or one step, I should say. After you notice, or after something happens, then there are soft skills involved in de-escalating a situation, right? There's a whole other chapter to this, right?
Sure, absolutely. There's an extensive amount of training. And for example, I'm sure you've heard of verbal judo.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So that those are very good examples. Here's an extreme example, but it was a few years ago. There was a administrator at a school just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, Antoinette Tuft, and a active shooter walked into the school with a rifle, cranked off a round or two into the foyer, and she literally talked him down and talked him into putting the rifle on her desk and wait for the police to walk in.
Wow. So how do you practice that kind of thing? Like how do you let's start with how you teach it. How do you teach somebody verbal judo?
Well, so there is, you have to look at a potential scenario from 3 angles, and those are, one is to take proactive measures. Do everything you can to avoid as best you can. And failing that avoidance, you then may have to make active measures, which are different than proactive measures. That means something's actually going on. For example, that guy you said that was following behind you on the street, you took an active measure. Your proactive measure was you recognized a potential threat. That was your proactive measure, utilizing your situational awareness of your environment. And then you executed an active measure by stepping away, putting your back against the wall. But you were prepared mentally to take reactive measures if it went a step further. So those are the 3: proactive measures to avoid a threat, active measures to mitigate a threat, and reactive measures to respond physically to a threat.
But so how do you? I guess it's probably based in there's probably a lot of psychology behind. How do you talk somebody who is, somebody that's determined to do harm to you? How do you talk that person out of it, or at least how do you teach someone to do their best to talk somebody out of it?
Well, there's different there's different techniques that are out there, and for example, you have your hands maybe up by your waist or a little higher above your gun belt with the palms facing them. It's a universal body language symbol of surrender. Hey, buddy, what's going? Lower your voice, talk slower. Change your body posture. Those are the verbal, visual cues that to let somebody know, hey, you know what? This is not an altercation. This is, we're talking peace, love, happiness here.
That's interesting. Hey, can you give us one example of you, like a real world example where you've used this in your life?
Absolutely. We were overseas on an assignment, and we got out. There was 4 of us. We got out of the vehicle, and all of us, without thought, because we've done it so many times, looked to our over to the left, which was across the street in this building, and there were a bunch of folks there that were obviously scanning us, looking at the vehicle. We weren't from around there. They identified us as Americans, and they were looking at us. And when all 4 of us looked right back at them, they all looked to the ground and dispersed, because we took away, utilizing our situational awareness, we utilized it as a deterrent and took away their element of surprise.
Interesting. Wow.
But wouldn't you say each situation is totally different than the next?
Absolutely. There's no cookie cutter wish, because if there was, you could go online to any do-it-yourself video on YouTube, and there would be the universal answer.
Yeah.
But there isn't one.
Well, that's why I was at. Like, it seems impossible to teach, because there is no. I guess you just have to find, similarities.
I think you just teach people to be. See, you're already aware / paranoid. Okay,
Paranoid, sure.
So it's not even in your mind.
Be like Mike. That's what you teach.
I bet, like, if you go down the hall by yourself and walk into the restroom, you will kind of look it over before you go in and do the duty you got to do.
Dave, it's not paranoia if they're actually after you.
Well, I know, but nobody is after you.
Oh.
But like my wife, she lives in another
now.
world where it's all dogs, it's all work, and she'll walk through life just totally consumed and doesn't think to look around. And I think, yes, you can teach it, but don't you agree, Steve? There are people out there that just have that. Maybe it is paranoia. I don't know, but they just do that. They look around. They assess things.
I'd like to make a differentiation between paranoia and preparedness. So
I like this already. Yeah, let's do this.
See,
I'm about to feel way better about myself. Go for it, Steve.
Okay, you're in your vehicle, you drive up to a red light, and you stop, and then the light turns green. Well, when I pull up to a light and I stop and the light turns green, even when it turns green, I still look left and right, because you just don't know.
So do I.
So is that paranoid or prepared?
No.
There you go.
Mike just stands on it. That's the problem.
I was a Boy Scout. Be prepared. That's
I was too. Maybe that had something to do with it.
All right, so where do listeners go to learn more, Steve?
Because my wife wants to take your class online.
Okay, well, there's several options. One is I've written several books. My most recent, which I would recommend specifically for this, is Your Most Powerful Weapon, which is available on Amazon in both soft cover and Kindle. There's also my website, stevetarani.com, which I offer a free, free monthly newsletter in that newsletter, I present open source intelligence, which provides information necessary for your awareness of what's going on today and how to be prepared for things like that. I also write for numerous gun magazines, so my articles are out there every month. And then lastly, I'd like to make an announcement that around the end of the first quarter in 22, we are currently working on the end of a 4-year-long project to have this all.
Wow. All right, folks.
Congratulations.
That's Tarani if you go online looking for him. Steve, look forward to hearing back from you, especially with the latest updates.
Very good, Rich. You guys stay safe out.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio.
You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.